Carmen and Ellen, who keep decorating our sanctuary and our community room quite beautifully. Patricia Wagner, who filled in for Quest for me. I appreciate that. And lastly, for the members of the Discover the Power Within who are going to be presenting their Beatitudes. We've had some last-minute changes, and hopefully we'll have a presentation for every Beatitude, or you'll get me filling in. And then let's see here. I'm going to stay today if anybody is planning to join this spiritual community and would like to just sit down and talk with me. There's a couple people signed up. We bribe you with ice cream. But it's just so I have a pulse on who you are, where you are, what your spiritual path has been. And so we have a joke today from Tana. And here it is. An out-of-towner accidentally drove his car into a deep ditch on the side of a country road. Luckily, a farmer happened to be passing along with this big old horse named Benny. So the man asked for help, and the farmer said, sure, Benny can pull that car out. So he backed Benny up, and he hitched him to the car's bumper. Then he yelled, pull, Nellie, pull! Benny didn't move. Then he yelled, come on, pull, Ranger! Pull, Ranger! Still, Benny didn't move. Then he yelled really loud, now pull, Fred! Pull really hard! Benny just stood there. Then the farmer nonchalantly said, okay, Benny, pull. Benny pulled the car out of the ditch. The man was very appreciative but curious. He asked the farmer why he called his horse by the wrong name 3 times. It said, well, Benny's blind, and if he thought he was the only one pulling, he wouldn't even try. All right. So today we're talking about the Beatitudes. And the Beatitudes, as you know, are in the beginning book of, the 5th chapter anyway, of Matthew. And they always say if you want to know the cliff notes to the Bible, read Matthew's chapter 5 through 7. And what he says in these Beatitudes is pretty much an overture of the 3 years of his ministry. And it's kind of like the way the Beatitudes are, it's kind of like biblical poetry. It's got some parallelism of thought and expression in there. And there's a few things that were done differently when Jesus gave the Beatitudes. The first thing was when he saw the crowds there, people who come to get a shot in the arm, or they hear that there's a prophet. And then there's also the people, the disciples, who really want to learn and practice what he's teaching. So he sees the crowds and he moves away from the crowds and he goes up to the mountain. So this is different. And so what he does is he goes up there to center himself in high consciousness, and then he comes down to teach. And then when he comes down, his disciples move in close, knowing intuitively that there's something important going on. So there's kind of like 2 types of students, shall we say. There's the ones who really want to hear every word and put it into practice, and then there's the other ones who are, there for the cookout, and hang out with everybody, see everybody in the community. All right. So he starts out saying, blessed. And one of the things about what we know in the Bible, and one of the reasons we interpret it metaphorically, is we never really know what the words mean. The word blessed in Aramaic and in Hebrew mean 2 different things, but they're only 1 letter apart. One means, in Aramaic, Anya, bent down, afflicted, miserable, poor. And then there's a Hebrew name, Anwan, meaning bending oneself down, humble, meaning gentle. Now the Greek word also means happy. But the most recent scholars' version, and you know how we like to put our recent twists on things, because now we're so much more knowledgeable, aren't we? I mean, we have all this technology, and then we even have technology angels that can help us. I mean, we are plugged in. So now they think that maybe the blessed means congratulations. Now, what's important about this is when Jesus says these Beatitudes, all of you are familiar, you've all heard him, and you kind of think, what? Huh? What is he saying here? And so what he's saying is very different from the Hebrew Bible. Because the Hebrew Bible, during that time, people thought that, if it thundered and lightning, then somebody did something wrong and they were bad and they, it was kind of like that. And Jesus is saying, no, it doesn't mean that at all. So the first beatitude, because we had a cancellation last night, so I'm doing this one, is blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So he's saying, congratulations to the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. To be poor in spirit is to feel dissatisfied with material things alone, no matter how abundantly we may be expressing in our lives. There's a higher dimension, and that's what this life is all about. The rich are poor in spirit if they focus on material things, and the poor are poor in spirit if that's their only focus is to acquire material things. So the blessed be the poor in spirit, we cannot begin to explore our spiritual possibilities until we actually recognize there's more to it than this materialism and wealth. So there's a hunger for a deeper experience of life, a more meaningful experience of life. And it means that the poor in spirit have woken up from the illusion. And we can wake up any time, can't we? We can wake up instantaneously, or we can wake up after long periods of meditation and study. Maybe we're down on our knees. I've heard from one or two of you that finally when you were down on your knees about something, all of a sudden you got it. So we can always wake up from the illusion. And so what he's saying is, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who wake up and realize there's a lot of meaning to life and that there's something higher and richer, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And that kingdom of heaven is, of course, as we know, a state of consciousness. So these are rules to live by, these Beatitudes. And so now we have the next presentation for Beatitude number 2.
Okay, it's blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. I'm no good. I'm fat. I don't have a job. No one wants to hire me. Nothing goes right. You stop that. What are you grateful for? Look at your life so differently. Find yourself. Look at your blessings. Look at your new knees. Let go and let God. Okay, I get it. I'm happy. I'm not fat, I'm fluffy. I have a great volunteer job. I help a lot of people. I have a great church. I have a great family. I have a great rock and roll family. I'm going to let go and let God. I am one with God. God inspired and directed. Direction will prevail. Hi. The third beatitude is, blessed are the meek, that they shall inherit the earth. Now, I always have a problem with that word meek. Don't know why. But it's interesting to go back and look at the history. Meek was originally applied to domesticating animals. And they give the example of a colt that has not been broken. Well, I love a colt that has not been broken. It exhibits so much spirit, doesn't it? And so they go on, and the meek has been translated several ways, and it was originally meek or gentle, that they see everything as coming from God and accepting it without complaint. In later translations, it was shown as mild, patient, long-suffering. Meek people see God in every situation, and they say God in every situation. Meekness is anger under control. They are able to balance their anger. A meek man is not self-centered. A meek man is so self-centered that his anger is not about what has happened to him, but is rather about righteous anger. And they give the example of both Jesus and Moses in righteous anger. When we are meek, we will bear insults without lashing out in resentment or retaliation. We'll thank God in every circumstance, while using every circumstance, good or bad, as an occasion to submit to Him. Meekness would be weakness if it meant yielding to sin. But because it stems from our goodness and our godliness, it is great strength. And it shows that these Beatitudes all build on each other. So listen to that as you go through, because number 4 will build on what 1, 2, and 3 have said. On page 62 of the book, Jesus was not talking about meekness towards men, but as an attitude towards God. I and myself can do nothing. And then 2 quotes, one from the book. I am in tune with God, that which is God-inspired and God-directed shall prevail. And then my favorite, and it's only 6 words, meekness is strength harnessed for service. I love that one.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know who 4 is. Are you guys 4? Yeah,
Gail.
Yeah, Gail's not going to do it. Okay. Yeah, because Peter's out of town, so it didn't work for them. Okay, so this one is, blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. So righteousness, as we know, is right use of our judgment. And this week we have a great lesson on judgment in Quest. And judgment, of course, is important for us to be able to live in the physical world. We have to make discernment and we have to judge. What this is referring to is how quickly we can judge by appearances, can't we? Without really knowing the shoes somebody has walked in or grew up in or where they came from or what's happened to them. I can't remember the name of Will Smith's wife, the actress. Jada. But I was on the airplane yesterday and I was reading an article about her, and they said something, somebody was saying, oh, well, how are you, taking all the criticism in Hollywood? And this is somebody who, God bless the grandmother and the mother, because they protected her from a really violent neighborhood. And she was held at gunpoint, and they finally, sent her away because they knew that she was either going to wind up dead or on the street. And what she said was something to the effect of, I am so grateful that those criticisms, that is my problem. Yeah. And it puts it all in perspective. So, blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. So it really means that when we're in right consciousness and we do not judge, we're always satisfied because we know that everything is exactly as it's supposed to be. Okay, number 5.
Blessed are the merciful, for they will obtain mercy. I'd like for you to envision a middle school classroom. Yeah, not a pretty sight. And I'd like you to become acquainted with a student whose name is Little Eddie Taylor, and I am the teacher, Miss Mercy. Okay. Late again, mercy, 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 that little Eddie Taylor.
Hi, Miss Mercy. Nice shawl.
Finally, you are here. Please take a seat. Today we're studying one of the Beatitudes from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Now my expectations are that your attitude will be more appropriate today than it was yesterday.
What do you mean?
Mercy, mercy, mercy. Yesterday, while we were studying the Boston Tea Party in our history class, you lit up a pipe that you stuffed with tea leaves as an example of protest. Creative? Yes. Disruptive? Absolutely. Now, let's begin. We are studying the following. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Eddie, can you sum up in one word what this means?
Sure, that's easy. It's all about forgiveness.
Excellent. Excellent, Eddie. Now let's really put on our thinking caps, raise our level of consciousness, and dig deeply into the key word mercy. But first, please spell mercy.
That's easy. M-E-R-C-Y.
Great. Now let's keep delving into the meaning of this word by thinking about each letter. Use your imagination and your experiences while making a practical day-by-day connection with each letter in the word mercy.
I think M could stand for mindful. I think you might have a mind full of reasons why you need to forgive me.
I admit you challenge me sometimes. However, I really like your choice of word. We must be mindful that each of us makes mistakes. It's like a law of consciousness that we can live by daily. We must be gentler and less judgmental and more willing to forgive. I may not be able to change your behavior, but I can change my attitude about you. I can see you being respectful and focused, and focused in class rather than a disruptive rascal. Now, let's look at the letter E. What might it stand for?
I like the word everlasting because it's like this. We can forgive somebody one day, and then the next day they bring it up again, what they did, and it's like rubbing their nose in their mistake. Forgiveness has to be last and last forever.
That is very grown-up thinking, Eddie. You're on a roll. How about the R in mercy?
That's easy too. R stands for right, religion, and righteous. That's what Jesus taught us in the Sermon on the Mount. Being right with our treatment of other people.
That sure puts a new light on the 3 R's. Well done, Eddie. Now for the C.
Now that's a tough one. A real puzzle. I got it. Conundrum.
Conundrum? That word hasn't even been in our vocabulary study. How do you think it ties in with mercy, the law of consciousness and forgiveness?
Well, it's kind of hard to explain, but showing mercy is kind of one of life's puzzles and riddles. It's hard to understand why some kid might hurt me in the first place, why I should forgive him when it doesn't seem that he deserves it, and it's really hard if he does it over and over again. It's just a conundrum.
I agree. It's like a big test of sorts. We have to practice the law of consciousness every single day, even with little problems with people. So it becomes second nature. Then hopefully we may be ready to pass the big test if faced with a serious problem. Well, you've almost finished the challenge. How about the Y in mercy? What's it stand for to you?
That's an easy one. It stands for yo-yo.
Yay!
Oh! Oh, Eddie Taylor, just when I thought you were showing such promise. Yo-yo indeed. Mercy, mercy, mercy.
Really, Miss Mercy, it's like the way you work a yo-yo. You spin it down, it comes back to you. Think about it. If you show forgiveness and mercy towards me for acting out in class on occasion, I'll forgive you for keeping me for detention.
Mercy, mercy, mercy. Once again, the teacher learns from her students.
Ours is, blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. All say that no one can see God here on earth, but Jesus says the pure of heart shall see God. And this is our hearts on our chests, of course. But we cannot see God with our human eyes in the sense of locating Him here in a given place or location. God is not to be seen with our physical eyes, for God is a whole of which man is part. Every part is a manifestation of God, an expression of the infinite mind, an activity of divine substance. So every part contains the essence, and thus the potential of the whole. If a man is conscious of the whole within himself, then he is whole. When man learns to see in God consciousness, then he sees beyond appearances to the innate potential of all that appears.
To be pure of heart means to be free of all selfish intentions and self-seeking desires. What a beautiful goal. How many times have any of us perform an act perfectly free of any personal gain? Such an act is pure love. An act of pure and selfless giving brings happiness to all of us. The affirmation is, I see the world not as it is, but as I am. I am in spiritual unity with God. And so our pure hearts really come to all of us together once we have the forgiveness and the love of God. And so to accomplish that, I would like to do for you what I did one day at the Jordan River, which is to give a benediction in Latin. So that's what it is for all of us now. And benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, et inimis peccatis perducat vos de vitam aeterna. Amen. In nomine Patri, et Filio, et Spiritus Sancto. Amen. Deo gracias.
If you choose this, I'm not sure why everybody's using the other one. Okay, it'd be much easier.
Okay, I was assigned, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. And I said, well, that's easy. It's very self-explanatory. But since we're studying Discover the Power Within You with Eric Butterworth, I decided I should see what he had to say about it. And he says that man is a spiritual being, but he only becomes this in fact and expression when he is attuned to the infinite and expresses his God potential for love and peace. And he said that there is a miracle working power within each one of us, but we must condition our mind to receive it. And this calls for much prayer and meditation. And Eric Butterworth was a big proponent of affirmative prayer. And so he said, call yourself a child of God. Affirm for yourself that you are divine in potential. And believe it, and you will become a peacemaker. In the most dramatic way, the world around you will change as you change. So I said, well, that's nice, but then I always like to overanalyze everything, you know. So I decided to see what Emmett Fox had to say about it in his book, Sermon on the Mount. And he said, here we receive a very practical lesson in the art of prayer. And prayer is the only thing that changes one's character. And this type of change is very radical, and it changes the person's life. And he said that this is what Jesus referred to as being born again. And he said, once you understand the power of prayer, you will be able to heal quarrels without even saying a word. The silent thought of the all-power of love and wisdom will cause any trouble just to melt away imperceptibly. Well, I said, well, that sounds good, but I wanted to see if I could get a historical perspective on it. So I decided to see if Dr. Rocco Errico, who is a biblical authority and scholar, if he had anything to say about it. So I looked in his book, and then there was light, and he says that the peacemakers were actually a group of people who had found peace within themselves, and then they were able to help settle disputes and quarrels in the community. And these men actually sat outside the city walls, and they acted as judges. And the people were very impressed by them, and they called them sons of God. And he actually feels that many of these peacemakers were present at the Sermon on the Mount, and that Jesus was addressing them specifically. Well, that was good. So then I said, well, I probably should look in the Bible to see what that had to say about it. So I looked in the New Testament, and it's only in Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. That's the only place it is in the whole New Testament. So then I looked in the Gospel of Thomas, because that is just chock full of Jesus sayings, and it wasn't in there either. So then I said, well, let's see what the Jesus Seminar had to say about it all. And the Jesus Seminar is a large group of American and European biblical scholars and historians who got together for 6 years to ponder a common question: what did Jesus really say? They inventoried all the surviving ancient texts for words attributed to Jesus. They examined these words in the ancient languages in which they were recorded. They studied, debated, and voted on over 1,500 statements that were in the study. And then they color-coded these statements into 5 categories, ranging from what Jesus actually said to what he probably didn't say. And guess what? Jesus probably did not say, "Blessed are the peacemakers." But it doesn't matter who said it. It's still a good statement. So then I said, well, what is my interpretation of all this after reading all this stuff? And I feel that all men have an innate desire for the peace of God. But in order to become peacemakers, we must surrender to the will of God. The peace of God rests on the fact that the will of God has no opposite. So if we are not in accordance with the will of God, we are not truly at peace. And through prayer and meditation, we become receptive to the peace of God. And we are then able to extend that love and peace to others. And now, I would just like to say in conclusion that all the books that I read are available through the bookstore. Thanks, God.
He's been wanting to do this forever.
Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. This beatitude also goes on to state, blessed are you when men revile you and persecute you and utter words, all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. Paul and I went to an article that we found on the web by a Unity minister, Elizabeth Sand Turner, and she said this about this beatitude. Those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake are ones who have spiritual ideas and yet encounter within themselves states of consciousness that oppose their ideals. These adverse states of consciousness belong to the race thought, much of which we still have within us. These states are tenacious and unyielding and resist or persecute the ideals that we are endeavoring to maintain or to achieve. Not only is there inner conflict, there may be outer ones as well. Men shall approach you and persecute you. When people do not understand our spiritual convictions, they are apt to misjudge and condemn us. This beatitude promises that we shall be blessed if we maintain our ideals in the face of inner and outer persecution. We should actually rejoice and be glad, for our steadfastness will bring with great spiritual advancement. This is our reward in heaven, and heaven is the spiritual kingdom within all people. In this brief skit, Paula and I are really representing just one person. She will express the appearance of things out there,